Hello everyone, I'm Batpan, a bat who rides a horse. In today's video, we're gonna see how to create that sitting on a chair like Fierce the Fathom or any other game that has this function in Unity. In this video, we're gonna make an interaction system. We're gonna interact with the chair. We're gonna sit down on it with a nice black transition. We're gonna get up from the chair by pressing the space key. This video will be put inside a series of videos covering Unity tips and tricks, and also another series of videos covering functions from the game Fierce the Fathom in Unity. You can check both of them through the channel. I published my retro horror game called Fractured Psyche. It's a retro psychological horror game, and I recently published an Android version for it. If you want to check it out, you can actually get to it with a link in the description. All the files used and created in this video are available on my GitHub. You can again get to it with a link in the description. With all that being said, let's put on the mask and begin. So right now we have a scene here. Inside our scene, we have a chair. You might ask, why do we have a chair in our scene? It's because we need it for the video. What I have is an FPS controller from the Unity standard assets. Unity standard assets is an asset that I've mentioned a lot before in my previous videos. You can get to it with a link in the description. It's just an FPS controller that moves the player. I have one here that actually moves around, that has a walk speed of 5 and a run speed of 10. I also have another FPS controller which I put on the chair for the camera movement, and I made its walk speed 0 and run speed 0 as well. And I just want its looking around function just for a test in this video. As you see, it's sitting on the chair and it won't move, and I deactivate it and I activate the FPS controller. You see, this one actually moves. What we need here is a black transition, so when we interact with the chair, it's gonna fade in the black, the screen is gonna turn black, we're gonna sit down, and then it's gonna fade out. We're gonna be, sitting on the chair and looking around. First, we'll create the black transition, so I'm just gonna right click, create a UI canvas. I'm gonna give the canvas this settings, scale with the screen size, 1920 by 1080, give your screen resolution, and put it at 0.5. Then I'm gonna go to UI panel, and I'm gonna make the panel, hold Alt and make it scale with the screen size. I'm gonna take its source image, so click on here and just get its source image. I'm gonna go to color and give it a complete black color. Make its alpha full and put it on black. We first have to make this a child of an empty object so we can activate and deactivate it through our script. So I'm just gonna click on this plus and create an empty object. I'm gonna call it black transition, and I'm gonna make its transform at 0, 0, 0. This is important, and I'm just gonna make this canvas a child of this black transition, so when we turn it off, it is off, and when we turn it on, it is on. What we need here is an animation for our black transition, so I'm just gonna go to this animation tab. If you don't have it, don't worry, just go to Windows, go to this animation, and just click on this animation tab, and it's gonna be like right here. It's gonna be like this. You can just drag it here so it is clipped on onto the bottom of your screen. I'm gonna go to this animation tab, select my black transition, the empty object we created. I'm gonna click on create to create a new animation. I'm gonna create a new folder. I'm gonna call it created anims, and inside I'm gonna call it black transition. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on this red dot so I can record the animation. I'm gonna go to this panel. By default, the panel starts at 0 opacity, and I'm gonna go to second one, and I'm gonna make its opacity 255, the full value. So as you see, it is a fade in. I'm just gonna wait for 15 frames. What I'm gonna do is you can just touch this and make it full again. You can just copy this keyframe, Control C and Control V here, and then I'm gonna fade out at around 215 and put it like right here. So as you see, now we have a fade in, waiting, and a fade out animation. You see, it is like this. You can, make the timer a little bit bigger or shorter as you wish. Now we have a really cool animation. What we're gonna do is, right now when you create animations inside Unity, automatically it's gonna make it loopable, so it's gonna loop again and again. To fix that, we're gonna select our black transition. You can go to your created anims folder and find the animation, and just, uncheck this loop time up here so it won't loop. We're gonna, interact with the chair. So to be able to interact with the chair, we're gonna select the chair. We have to give it a collider so we can interact with it. So we're just gonna select the chair, go to this add component, and add a box collider. And now you see we have a box collider around our chair. We also have to give it a tag. I'm just gonna make it unpack completely, so it is not a prefab. If you have a prefab, you can do it. It is not necessary. So right now we have to give it a tag so we know what we're interacting with. So now I select my chair. I go to this tag section up here. I'm gonna click on this and I'm gonna add a tag. I'm gonna click on this plus and I'm gonna add a tag of chair. I'm gonna click on this save. And right now the chair is added. Be careful, the chair is not set yet, so you again have to select your chair and go to this tag section and just add a tag of chair. Now my chair is recognized as a chair because it has a tag of chair, and when I'm interacting with it, I know that I'm interacting with a chair. So now that we just gave it this, we can go ahead and create a script to do all of this for us. So I'm just gonna go to Fierce to Fathom, sit down. I'm gonna create a new C# script. I'm gonna call it Fierce to Fathom, sit down, and I'm gonna just give it a name of interact because I might create another script inside which I'll create the function of us standing up. So to do that, I'm just gonna give this a name of Fierce to Fathom, sit down, interact, and double click to open it up. So inside our script, we don't need void start, so we can just remove it from here. Inside our script, we need some references. I'm gonna tell you the references first in our scene, then we'll go ahead and reference them in the script. We need a reference to our FPS controller, this FPS controller that we had, and we also need a reference to the camera that is sitting here, so we can deactivate the FPS controller and activate the sit down camera. We also need a reference to our black transition, so we can activate it and deactivate it. That is okay. These are the three things we need a reference to. So at first I'm just gonna get a reference to that. So serialized field, private game object, FPS controller, and I can just duplicate it and via sit down cam. We also need a reference to serialized field, private game object, black transition, and that is everything we need. We might need void start to deactivate the black transition at the start or things if you don't want to do it in the editor. So we can just make void start, and inside it we just deactivate the black transition. So our black transition is off at the start. Make our sit down cam equal to false at the start, and we make our FPS controller activated at the start. So our FPS controller is activated at the start, and our black transition and sit down camera are deactivated. And inside what update, I'm going to create a new interaction system. For the interaction system, we need a boolean. So private boolean can interact, which is equal to false. We don't need it to be private. We need to make it public boolean because I'm going to access it from outside the code, and it is equal to true because we can interact at the start of the game. We go ahead and check if we can interact. Can interact is equal to true, we can go ahead and interact. This time, since we don't have an interaction text in our in our case, we can go and do another version of interaction system, and it only shoots array whenever we press the left mouse. More optimized, because if you have a 60 frames game, FPS game, void update is gonna run 60 times in a second, and it's gonna shoot 60 rays in a second. Instead of doing that, we're gonna only shoot a ray whenever we press the left mouse. So this time I'm gonna make a new interaction system inside which we first check if we press the left mouse. We say if input dot get mouse button down 0, so it checks if we can interact. Then it goes ahead and checks if we press the left mouse key. If we did, it's gonna shoot a raycast, and raycast is gonna be like raycast called ray equal to new ray, transform the position to transform forward, raycast hit, called hit. So what are these two lines? The first line is going to shoot an invisible thing called ray in the direction the camera is looking at. This transform.position, the transform.forward means this script is going to be applied to our camera. So it's going to get the camera's transform, and it's going to shoot that ray cast in the direction the camera is looking at, and that invisible ray is going to hit something, and that something is going to be put inside this hit value. Then we're going to check if the invisible ray we shot actually hits something. So we say if physics dot raycast, give it the ray, give it the out hit in a distance of 5. So we say if the invisible ray we shot actually hits something in a distance of 5. If it did, we can go ahead and check if we actually, hit a chair. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if hit the thing we hit dot collider, go and get this collider dot compare tag, and if it has a tag of chair. So it's gonna check if the object we hit has a tag of chair. Be careful, this has to be exactly the same characters as your tag you created. Capital C, small h, and all the other letters are small, so be careful. It has to be exactly the same thing. If we actually hit a chair, we can go ahead and sit on chair. We wait 1 second, we deactivate our FPS controller, and the script we just created is going to put onto the camera, which is actually a child of the FPS controller. So when we, deactivate the FPS controller, the script is not going to run anymore, and it's going to introduce a bug. And to fix that bug, I'm just going to create a new empty object. I'm going to call it game manager, and I'm going to create a new script, C# script. I'm going to call it first to Fathom, sit down, game manager. Open it. Inside it, we don't need void start and update. We can just give it here, and when we call the void, we could take those values, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna get those references there. So I'm just gonna select all of these. I'm gonna cut, so cut, and inside here we can just paste, and that is it. And we just don't need this void start. We can just remove it. We just have a public boolean called can interact, and we're gonna go inside our first to Fathom sit down game manager, which is the script that is going to manage our game. Right now in here we can just activate and deactivate the player in void start. Just going to say FPS controller dot set active true, sit down cam dot set active false, and back transition false. And that is everything for the game manager. What we want to do, we want to create a function that we're going to call, and that function is going to make us sit down, and we're going to manage it in here. We'll have to create a public void in here, and we can just reference it inside another script, inside this script. It's actually very easy to do. We're just going to say public. It has to be public because we want to call it from another script. Void, I'm going to call it sit down void. We're going to reference it in another script. What it's going to do is, this public void is going to run our enumerator. What is an enumerator? Because I want to wait for 1 second inside my script, activate the black transition, wait for 1 second. When the screen is completely black, we're going to, deactivate our FPS controller, and then we're going to activate our sit down cam. To do that, we have to do it inside an enumerator because it allows us to, wait for some time in between our actions. So enumerator, I'm going to call it sit down, this time CO, which stands for coroutine. It's going to give an error because it has to return a value. No worries, we'll fix it in the upcoming minutes. So what we want to do is, inside our sit down void, we're going to call our enumerator. So we say start coroutine sit down CO. That's how you call your enumerator. It has to be start coroutine. Then inside our sit down CO, we're going to create this function. What we want to do is we're going to activate our black transition. So black transition dot set active true. Then we want to yield return new, wait for seconds. We're going to wait for 1 second. First, we're going to activate the sit down, then deactivate the FPS controller. So we say sit down cam dot set active true, FPS controller dot set active false. We're gonna wait for yield return new, wait for seconds, 1.5 f seconds, to be sure that our black transition animation is finished, and then we just deactivate our black transition. What it will do is, because we want to use our black transition again, we have to make it false. So when we again make it true, it just runs the animation for the idle thing. One thing you have to keep in mind is, when you go here, we need a reference to our can interact in another script. We're gonna go here, and we're gonna get a reference, serialized field, private. We're gonna get a reference to our first to Fathom sit down script. So first to Fathom sit down interact script. I'm gonna call it interact script. And now we have a reference to it. We can go ahead and inside our sit down coroutine, we can just say interact script dot can interact equal to false. Since we have a reference to that script, we can go ahead and make this one false. So when we are changing and sitting down on the chair, we won't be able to interact again and sit on it again and again and break the game. For that reason, we make our can interact false here, and after we're done, just interact script dot can interact equal to true. You're able to interact again, and that's how you get a reference from another script. But we need another reference as well that is gonna call this function in this script, and because of that, we also need a reference, serialized field private, reference to our first to Fathom sit down game manager. I'm gonna call it game manager script. and now we have a reference to it. We can just call it from here. So game manager script dot sit down void. As you see, I can just call it like this, and it's gonna go inside our script and it's gonna run this function. As you see, it says one reference. And that is everything you have to do. It is very easy to do. Let me explain it again. We made a can interact boolean to check if we can interact or not. We check if we can interact. We go ahead and check if we press the left mouse key. If we did, we go ahead and shoot an invisible thing that is going to hit an object. If it actually hits an object in a distance of 5, then we go ahead and check if the object that was hit has a tag of chair. If it does, we go ahead, get access to our game manager script, and we run a function, and that function is this function. We can go ahead and check it out. So game manager script, we're gonna give it the first of Fathom sit down game manager script. It needs these references. We'll give them one by one, but first we gotta go to our camera and give it the first of Fathom sit down cam interact. I'm gonna make it, not a prefab. As you see, it needs a reference to our game manager script. We can just click on the circle to find it. You can just drag and drop your object with the script onto it. But be careful, first you have to give it the script to, drag and drop it there. And that was the only reference we need. Inside our game manager, we need lots of references. First one is the FPS controller. We can just drag and drop our FPS controller. We need the sit down cam. I'm just gonna give it. We need the black transition. I'm gonna give it the black transition. And we also need this script. I'm gonna click on the circle to give it. You can just drag and drop your object with the script onto it. And that was everything. Now by default, I'm gonna deactivate the black transition, even though the script is gonna deactivate it for me. But I'm just gonna deactivate it. Let's go ahead and check it out. We go here, interact. It changes, and now we are sitting on the chair. You see, that was it. That was how to do it. So we need a new script that we're gonna give to our sit down camera. This camera is activated when we are sitting down. You'll understand it in the following minutes, no worries. I'm gonna create a new C# script. I'm gonna call it first to Fathom sitting controller. Double click to open it up. So right now, we don't need void start. Inside this script, we also need another boolean to check if we can interact or not. So we say public boolean. This time I'm not gonna call it can interact because it might, get confusing. I'm just gonna call it can set up, which is equal to true by default. And in our void update, we're gonna check if we can set up. We go ahead and set up. This is actually equal to, just saying can set up equal to true, but this is, a shorter way of, writing it. So if we can set up and we check if we press the space key, we can go ahead and, just set, get up. Can sit up, but what does this set up mean? It's just, can get up. Can walk, maybe. Yeah. Can walk. We press the space key, so input dot get key down key code dot space. So if we press the space key, we go ahead and get up and we can move around. It is exactly like the sitting down function. We have to do it inside our game manager, so we need to create another public void. I'm gonna call it public void get up void, and inside it we're gonna call an enumerator exactly like before. So enumerator get up co, which stands for coroutine. What we're gonna do is we're gonna call that start coroutine, our function in here, get up co, and that is it. So first we need the reference to our sitting controller to get the can walk boolean. So private first to Fathom sitting controller, we'll call it sit script. Our sit script, first we're gonna say sit script dot can walk equal to false, for exactly the same reason as I said before, to prevent some bugs from happening. Then we activate our black transition like before, set active true, wait for 1 second, then we say FPS controller dot set active true and sit down cam.setActive false. Is exactly the opposite of this up here. We can just copy this, wait for 1.5 seconds. We're gonna deactivate our black transition so we can actually use it again, and we can just say sit script dot can walk equal to true, and that is it. That's how to do it. We're just gonna go inside our first to Fathom setting controller. We're just gonna say we need a reference to our game manager in here, so we say first to Fathom private first to Fathom game manager, first to Fathom game manager script, and we're just gonna say game manager script dot get up void, and that is everything you have to do. We just have to go to our sit down camera and just give it the first to Fathom setting controller, and it needs a reference to our game manager, so you can click on this circle and you give it the reference to game manager. And we also have to go to our game manager and get a reference to our sit script, and that is everything we have to do. We can just deactivate our sit down and we can go ahead and check it out. So you see, we get up, we say you're sitting down, as you see, and we can press space to get up. You see, I press space, it gets up, and I can move again, I can interact again, you know, I can just sit down again, I can just get up. So I'm just gonna sit down and end the video. That was how to create, you know, sitting on the chair like Fierce the Fathom or any other game that you see in Unity. I tried to explain everything in this video, you know, sitting down and getting up. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, a like would be very amazing. You can subscribe to see more contents like this. You can tell me anything in the comment section below, maybe suggestions, any opinions you have, anything you want to say. I would actually read all of them and I'll be glad to answer it. You know, sometimes YouTube won't, you know, show me some comments. You know, I just find it out later that some comments have not been shown to me, you know, in the YouTube Studio tab. I don't know why. It is a bug from YouTube. I hope they fix it because I want to, you know, answer all the comments. If you know, just gave a comment and I didn't answer, you know, for a long time, maybe a day or two, that is because YouTube just decided to not show me that comment. I'm sorry for it. You can just ask me again, or, you know, just you can DM me in the Instagram or anywhere you want. Thank you so much for watching this video. You guys are amazing. You guys are full of support and positive energy. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.